Hey there, welcome to Lesson 2. Thank you for going through Lesson 1 with me. I hope you enjoyed it. I just want to give you mad props for making it this far. Hundreds of people were offered this course, and far, far less than that actually took me up on this opportunity. And for the last several years, I can't tell you. I'm not exaggerating when I say it's in the hundreds of people I have gotten coffee with on the phone who just want a quick fix. They want me to tell them, I don't know what they want me to tell them, but they want something quick and easy. They talk to me once and I never hear from them again. They're not really wanting to learn this stuff. And I was the same way for several years, and life had to really kick my butt for me to really humble myself and want to learn and understand that I needed help and trying to find this stuff. And I had to go find this stuff the hard way through talking to dozens of people, making mistakes. So I think it's cool to toot my own horn that I've put this together for you, but I want to give you a ton of credit for caring enough about yourself and realizing that you need this advice and need this help to keep watching this stuff. And the fact that you're watching Lesson 2 right now is a big deal. You are in the very small percentage of people who already understand what it takes. So you might be feeling a little discouraged, a little overwhelmed right now, and I'm going to throw a bunch of information at you, but just the fact you're watching this is a huge deal. So please don't sell yourself short. Feel good about that a whole lot of other people who want to do what you want to do aren't doing the right things and aren't even willing to learn. And at least you're willing to learn. And that's the first and biggest step. So you don't have to move to Washington, D.C. to network. And that's what we're going to talk about. So keep in mind, everything I'm teaching you, if I forget to really hammer it home, is you can do the things I'm teaching you no matter where you live. I have helped tons of people, especially in Arkansas, where I'm from, do this very stuff, land a cool job in Washington, D.C., and then move up here. They didn't have to move up here and wait tables for 6 months to network. You don't have to be in the town. Does it help? Of course. Of course it helps. And if money is no object and you could just come live in D.C., by all means do it. But most of us, that's not the case. So I will never, ever teach people, just get to D.C. and do whatever. No. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to take an entry-level job and maybe it's not in your field and it's not perfect. But, I want you coming up here when you have something paid, when you can make rent and you're getting some relevant-ish office-type experience that's going to help propel you into your field. But the ultimate goal for what I'm going to teach you today is to get 3 to 5 career investors. And you probably don't even know what a career investor is because I made that term up, but we'll talk about that in a second. And the best way to get to DC can often be from somewhere else. And I'm just going to teach that point right now. So during the DC Hopefuls Fellowship, we were doing a call, and I had a mentor of mine call in and kind of teach the group about his life and his lessons. And something he said that stuck with me was, often the best way to a place like Washington, D.C. is from somewhere else. And I didn't exactly know what he meant, so I followed up with him the next day. And his point was some of the most successful people in his life started other places. They didn't all move to D.C. at 22. So if they really were interested in politics, they worked on 3 or 4 campaigns throughout the country and then ultimately landed a very nice position in D.C. once they had that experience under their belt. People who were interested in politics but not campaigning, the legislative side, they got some experience at their state house, at the local level, because that's how life played out for them. That's when they networked, that's where opportunities led them. People who wanted to work in national security, maybe they got a great job at, a military base somewhere else first, and they were able to get the clearances and things like that. So I love Washington, D.C. I'm obsessed with it. This is the coolest town in the world. But don't become over-obsessed with this town, which is funny because my organization is called DC Hopefuls, but if you can find an opportunity that's more in your field and it's somewhere else, that's not a bad opportunity. A great example is Zach, who's a member of the DC Hopefuls Fellowship group, wants to be an intelligence analyst, and he will one day. He's in my group, so he's learned a ton from the DC boot camp and from me and other people, and his network ended up finding him an opportunity in his hometown in Utah. And it was doing risk management assessment for a worldwide organization, and we talked about it, and I was like, man, that's what an intel analyst does. You're just doing it on a more of a commercial side, but those are amazing skill sets they're going to teach you, and that's great pay. So he's been doing that for 2 years now, and I think he'll do it for a while, and that's a really amazing experience that he will be able to leverage to maybe get that really cool intel analyst job in DC if that's what he decides. But ultimately, he's using his degree, and he likes his job, and isn't that kind of what we all want? So, Now, that's also to say most people I help do end up in DC with that first job. I'm not trying to discourage that by any means. I want you to keep your mind open to opportunities, because of what we're about to talk about is, people over jobs, as I alluded to in the last video. And then later we're going to talk about how most people network all wrong, what to know before you start, when to start, and how to start. So how do people network wrong? When I first heard about networking, I didn't really think there was a right way or a wrong way. You just went and kind of talked to people. You went to happy hours and you passed around business cards. Well, that's not how it works in our world. So many people, the way they do it wrong is they start at the end. They just want to skip all the work. It's like they want to go buy the skinny jeans, but they don't want to go to the gym and eat right. So I get all the time. I get LinkedIn messages. Hi, I think what you do is really cool. Can we chat? I'm like, no, dude, I don't know you. I'm not talking to you. Why am I going to take an hour out of my day to talk to a random stranger who just LinkedIn messaged me? No, I'm not going to do that. They'll find you on Facebook. They'll send emails. I used to go onto the State Department's website and get people's emails and be like, I'm really interested in what you do. Could we get coffee? Well, guess what? That never, ever worked except one time. And I went and got coffee with this woman, and it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because I just asked her questions. It was really awkward because she didn't know me. I was a total stranger to her. She had no real obligation to help me. And when I followed up with her, she never wrote back. And I remember thinking, this isn't going to get me anywhere. And I really had this epiphany, you can't start at the end. Yeah, she worked in an office I really liked, but we had no common ground. We didn't share any social circles. I had no leverage for her to get help. And we're going to talk a lot about that in a minute. Because the ultimate goal of a contact, to have that networking contact, is to have multiple interactions. So when you go and you talk to someone for the first time on the phone, or you get coffee with them, your only real goal is this person going to talk to me again? And then will they talk to me again? Because you want to talk to them many, many times, because the more you talk to them, the more they're going to get invested in you, career investing, and that's when you're going to really start getting opportunities. That's when they're going to feel comfortable helping you. People will not get coffee with you one time and then go knock down doors for you. That's very, very rare. That does not happen. Do you have to talk to them 55 times? No. Everyone's going to be different, and I'm going to teach you a little bit how you can do it really well so they're more likely to help you quicker. So people through people, and I think this story does such a better job of explaining it than I could ever just do trying to teach it. So there was a young man in Tulsa, and he decided he wanted to work in national security. And he did what I teach. I don't think he realized what he was doing this. And he told his mom. He said, Mom, I really want to work in national security. I want to end up in D.C. one day. And she said, the lady I work with at the library at this public school in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I think her son moved to D.C. I remember her talking about it. So she goes to her, and she said, yeah, my son James is in the Foreign Service at the State Department. I'll put them in touch. So naturally, when James gets a phone call from his mom and says, hey, I work with this lady, can you talk to her son? James is obligated to talk to this kid. Why? Because think about it. He loves his mother. His mom sees this woman every day. If he big times this kid, doesn't talk to him, and isn't helpful, that's awkward for his mom. So this young man had penetrated James's social circle. So of course, James is willing to help him. They talk. James gives him some advice, and James says, you really are more interested in what my friend Tommy does. I think he would help you better. So when he made the introduction, hey, Tommy, would you talk to this guy? Yeah, okay, I guess. But what he did, is this kid probably never understood this, but this happens all the time. James emailed me separately and said, look, this guy's mom works with my mom. I want to help him. You know how this goes. And I was like, well, now I have to help this guy. I know James is my best friend. I want to help him out. I know his mom. I see her every Christmas, and it's going to be awkward if, it gets back to her that I didn't talk to this guy, or if I did and I wasn't very helpful or I was rude. So when I got on the phone with this guy, I really wanted to help him. I was willing to give tons of advice. I was willing to make some introductions. That is how you penetrate people's social circles. And we're going to talk in a second. We're going to walk through this scenario and exactly how he did it. But do you see what I'm talking about? He didn't just go find me on LinkedIn. I would have never responded because I'm too busy. I don't have time to help total strangers. But this guy kind of wasn't a total stranger. He had entered my world, and I felt a little bit obligated to help him. So, what to know before you start. Where does everyone fit into my network? So before I move forward, I kind of want you to understand the roles people are going to play in your network, because so many young people, including myself when I was younger, we only want to focus on those people, those sexy people. And I can't come up with, not literally physically sexy, meaning like if you want to work on Capitol Hill, you're just trying to find anyone who works on Capitol Hill. And then you ignore the intern or the staff assistant because you want to talk to the legislative correspondent or the chief of staff, or but that's not true. Everyone has a role in your network. Everyone can play a role. They all may play different roles. So what I want to talk to you about is the different types of people who are going to be in your network, because I think in a second you're going to be blown away by like the people are actually going to play a part in your professional network that you would have never imagined being a part of it. It's not all just going to be people in your field, because sometimes those people aren't helpful or they're hard to find. So we're going to talk about cheerleaders, feedback friends, contacts, career investors, references, and then no haters. So what is a cheerleader? A cheerleader is that person you really, really need. They are going to cheer you on. They think you're amazing. They think you're the best, but they're probably not going to be much help. You don't know that until you talk to them. And what I'm saying is you're going to talk to all these people, and then you will decide what role they play. Don't just assume someone's a cheerleader. You just never know. A girl you'll see a little bit about in a minute, Brianna Suggs, in my group, joined my group, the DC Hopefuls Fellowship, and when she went out and started building her network, she thought her aunt would probably be a cheerleader, but talked to her anyway. Turns out her aunt's neighbor was an Air Force colonel, this Air Force colonel who had a 35-year career in intelligence, and that's what Bree wanted to do. So her aunt was far more than a cheerleader. Her aunt was a great career investor, because she made this unbelievable intro to this guy who Bree turned into a career investor, and who has probably introduced her to 10 to 15 people, and it has been a great in for her. So we're going to go talk to people, and once the dust kind of settles and you've had these conversations, you'll kind of start putting people into groups, and that's how you're going to operate your network long term. So a cheerleader, like I said, is someone who really encouraging, but probably isn't a lot of help. My mom is my biggest cheerleader. My mom, when I was going through this and so distraught, I'd call my mom, and she'd tell me I was great and to keep at it, and if there's anything I needed, she's there for me. My friend Mac, my friend Thomas. Thomas runs a men's clothing store, a very successful one. He's super successful and smart. Not a lot of help in my world. My friend Mac is a doctor. Amazing guy, really encouraging. I love him to death. Is just never going to know. I've asked him, there's just no one he really knows that's ever been able to really help me, but he's been so incredibly helpful for those days when I'm feeling down, when someone tells me I stink and can't do it. Hearing Max say, that's bullcrap, yes you can, invaluable. So you want to have those cheerleaders, because no matter what I teach you, no matter how many things you do right, this is going to be hard. Things aren't going to go your way. You're going to have some disappointment, some setbacks, and you need cheerleaders in your life. You can't just keep this bottled up, because for so many years I did, and I broke. I started developing anxiety. Suddenly I couldn't get on airplanes anymore. Like, I was a mess because I was not expressing my frustration. I wasn't getting that encouragement I needed. And one of the things I started doing when I kind of really came to terms with this was start talking to the positive people in my life more often and feeling better about myself. So anyway, what's a feedback friend? A feedback friend is really, really important. So a feedback friend for me is my buddy Marshall, Dave, Tyler, James, Spencer, a lot of my friends up here. I probably got about 15 feedback friends, and you will get that over time, especially when you move to DC and start getting friends up here. A feedback friend is someone who was your friend first. You met them socially, you are friends. You hang out, you go get drinks, you play games together, like you do things that friends do, but they tend to be in your world a little bit. Maybe they're going to law school and they're going to be a lawyer and you don't want to be a lawyer, and my friend Dan is a great feedback friend. Dan's an attorney who does financial stuff, very different than what I do, but we're in the relative world of government, public policy type stuff, Dan has had some fantastic advice for me when I'm having problems at work, when I'm not sure how to approach somebody, things like that. He's been amazing. So your feedback friends are those really good friends. They would be a cheerleader, but they're more helpful than a cheerleader. They're kind of in your world, they get it, and they are so important to give you feedback. These are the people I go to and say, here's my situation at work. Here's what I think I'm going to do. And they say, that is a terrible plan. If you came to me and did that, here's what I would think about you. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's a great point. Thanks, man. These are the people that if they have a contact, they should be my contact. An introduction from one of them is going to get me really well connected to somebody because they can say, oh my gosh, Tommy, he was in my wedding. He was a really great friend of mine. Oh my gosh, Tommy, yeah, he's married to my really good friend, blah, blah, blah. Like, these are close people who are great for making connections, but they're even more valuable for getting that really necessary feedback and support. So you'll develop. You may not have a lot of those right now. You may not have any, but you'll get them. Contact. So a contact, you'll hear me say a lot. That's a really common term when we're talking about networking. A contact is someone you meet, but unlike a feedback friend, you don't know them very well right now, and it was met under a professional umbrella. Maybe your feedback friend made an introduction to you, and now you're going to go get coffee with them. This is a contact, someone you're making a connection with, hopefully, under that professional umbrella. That's the theme, professional development, help like that. You're not going to the movies with them to become their buddy. You're going to coffee to talk about career stuff. I consider a contact as someone we've only met a little bit. They're not really well developed. A good rule for being a contact and not a career investor, and we'll talk about that next, is a contact is someone that I don't feel comfortable introducing you to. Because people have asked, people I'm really wanting help that I feel like I'm their career investor, and they're like, hey, do you know anyone here? And I'll say, I have a contact there. I don't feel comfortable making that intro yet because I'm not sure what our relationship is quite yet. We've only talked once, or we've only emailed, we've met once and emailed twice. It's just not there yet. Those are professional relationships that we are trying to develop. And our goal is to make a contact a career investor. So what is a career investor? A career investor is someone who is invested in your career. There you go. But really what it means is it's kind of a mentor. But what I had to come to terms with and realize is that no one was ever going to say, Tommy, come here. Let me be your mentor, dude. Let me walk you through. No one's ever going to do that because that's really pretentious and this is kind of awkward. I had no ideas that it was on me to turn them into that role by constantly going to them for advice and feedback and getting them very invested in me over time. And the career investors are vital because those are the people with your feedback friends. Career investors and feedback friends are the people that are going to hear of an opportunity and they're going to think of you. They're going to be at that happy hour and hear of that opening or that someone's getting fired and they're going to have to backfill and they're going to say, hey, I got this guy, Tommy. Man, hold on. Let me give you his resume. I have it on my phone. Let me talk to him. They're the people that are just going to knock down doors for you. They're going to vouch for you because they feel invested in you. And we'll talk briefly in a minute about how to get them invested. But career investors are the goal. You probably don't have them right now. Maybe you have one or two. And they don't have to be super fancy. They don't have to be that chief of staff on Capitol Hill. They can be your professor. Like, no one says they have to be directly in your field. I love having career investors that don't really work in what I want to do. Actually, they're more helpful because they probably know a lot of people in my field. And they're not scared to make those intros because it's not really their world and they're all about helping you. Because they're not, it's just kind of, it can be more helpful than you realize. A great example is if you approached me, you'd say, well, Tommy, I want to work in alternative energy. So like, you wouldn't be that helpful. You're national security. Well, that's real dumb because one of my best friend Dave's, who's a feedback friend and just one of my favorite people in the world, is really well connected in that world. He's been very successful in there and he knows everyone. He would be the greatest intro I could ever make for you into that field. That's why it's okay to have career investors not in your field. They might still have fantastic advice to give you. My friend Dan gives me amazing advice. He's not national security, and he knows lots of people who are. So just you never want to be dismissive of someone who might be worth getting invested in you. They don't have to be in DC. It's just ultimately, I'd rather have a career investor, I think is what I'm trying to say, is who's really willing to help me because I can connect to the chief of staff. But if they're not really a very helpful person, they're probably never going to become a true career investor. Career investors are people that you know as you build that relationship, like this guy, this lady is going to help me. And then references. References are really important, and we want to treat them like a career investor. But a reference is, we all know what a reference is. It's like, oh yeah, Tom worked here. But what I mean is a reference is someone who you worked with, or you went to school, maybe a professor, someone who knows you academically or professionally. You didn't just meet them for coffee and developed a relationship, which is great. This is the best thing you can have. So, my reference would be the people I work for right now. I have 5 or 6 people who I really get along with. And what my goal would be is when I leave this organization and before I leave, to really get them invested in me and build a relationship to where I still feel comfortable talking to them, reaching back out to them, getting advice. I have 1 or 2 in my old job. You're not going to turn everybody into one, because they are going to be unbelievably powerful in your life, because unlike a career investor, they'll make an intro and be like, Tommy's a great guy. I've really gotten to know him. You should talk to him. A reference can say, Tommy worked with me or for me. He did phenomenal work. He's a great guy. We've stayed in touch the last 2 years. Y'all should talk. I mean, there's nothing more powerful than that. So, in a way, my most powerful person is my friend Tyler, because we were friends first. Then we worked together. So, in a way, he's my feedback friend. He's my cheerleader because he's very encouraging. But he's a reference, because if Tyler makes an intro for me, this is my good friend Tommy. We've known each other a long time. We worked together for 2 years. He kicked butt there. He was really great. Like, not only is he a good dude, but I've seen what he can do in the workplace, and he's good. Like, holy smokes. Who's not going to want to take that coffee with me now when they hear that? So references can be very important as well. Same thing with a career investor. It's okay if, you work for them at some organization that's not really what you want to be doing long term. That doesn't mean they don't know lots of people in that field. And an intro from them is going to be very powerful. And then ultimately, you got to drop the haters. So as important as having cheerleaders are, you got to drop the people who are the opposite of that. When I was in high school, I had, I talked about Mac and Thomas, my 2 friends growing up who were so encouraging. But I had 2 other friends who were the opposite. And they were really popular and cool, and they were fun to hang out with in high school. But as we got into college, they were really negative. They really brought me down a lot, and I was just too young and stupid to kind of question, why am I hanging out with these people? I don't feel good about myself when I'm with them. And I'll always remember one of them. I had just applied to American Graduate School. We were at a party, and I was really nervous because I hadn't heard back. And the deadline, they were supposed to have told me by now, and I hadn't heard. And I was talking about it, and I remember him just being like, you're not going to get into American. The valedictorian of our high school class goes there. Like, you don't have the grades. Like, dude, you got to give up on this whole DC thing, man. And I just remember feeling awful. I left the party 10 minutes later, and I was just like, he's right. I'm nobody. I'm never going to leave Arkansas. What am I doing? Well, screw him. I got into American. I'm the senior intel analyst on the lead 9/11 case at 32 years old. I got that job at 29. So he was wrong. And I look back, and it's it's fine. He's not a bad guy. It's just I didn't need that in my life right then. And you don't need that either. So I'm not telling you go break up with all these people. But the people who bring you down, who are always well, are you sure? You think you can do that? You can do it. Screw them. Don't listen to them. You are amazing, and you don't need that. So do you have to sit them down and break up with them? No. But I definitely never told those people about... I stopped telling them about, I'm applying to school, or I'm going for a promotion, or I'm really stuck. I just didn't tell them those sort of things. They didn't need to hear it because they weren't going to be a positive influence in me. Doesn't mean I still didn't hang out with them socially here or there, but I have rid myself of negativity. And the older I get, I have identified people in my life who I don't trust, who aren't reliable, who just kind of bring me down, and I just kind of weed them out of my life, because I don't need that. I need people who are going to be uplifting, positive, and people I can trust. And you are the company you keep. You really are. I have a quote somewhere on my website that says, show me who you're leaving with and I can tell you where you're going. If I was hanging out with those guys, I was going to a place of low self-confidence and feeling bad. When I was going with Thomas and Mac, I was going to have a good time and come home feeling good about myself. And who you surround yourself by, especially right now as you're trying to build your career, is so, so important. Honestly, if you take anything away from this, I hope that's maybe one thing you take away, is just to get rid of the negativity in your life. So when to start. Okay. We got all that. So now we know kind of like where people are going to fit. We know that my mom's going to be a part of my network. She's a cheerleader. We know some of my friends and professors are going to play a role. Maybe they could be feedback friends and give me that feedback as I try to grow and get better. And I'm going to go make some contacts and things like that. So when do you want to start doing this? I always say you want to start networking yesterday. There is no such thing as waiting to start doing this. It drives me bananas. When I talk to young people, I'm like, yeah, man, I am sold. I love what you're doing. So when the semester's over, I'm going to really start networking. I'm like, what? Why? Why would you wait to do this? Every day you're waiting you are costing yourself an opportunity. I think of some of the people I now know and I think, what if I had known them 3 years ago? What if I had known them 3 months ago? What kind of things could have come my way? What could I have learned? There is no reason to delay this because I promise you, I don't care if you're in school, what test you have coming up, you are not going to remember the grade you made on this test in 4 or 5 years. It is not going to matter in the grand scheme of your life. But making a powerful connection who introduces you to someone else who can really help you for the rest of your career, that is going to change your life. So you've got to start trying to do this. You don't have to do 10 hours a day, but just try. Block off some time on a Sunday night and start putting these things together and try to meet certain, 3 people a month, whatever kind of goals you want to set for yourself. But you got to start doing this right now. But where do you start? I watch so many things. I try to learn as much as I can, and they'll throw you info not like this, but you learn a bunch of info, but then you leave it and you're like, I don't know how to go actually do any of this. So for me, the best place to start, this is where I teach everyone who takes the DC boot camp. I say, look, pull out a piece of paper. Don't ever let anyone see this piece of paper. And write down all the people in your life, all of them. And then I want you to start ranking them by the people you feel the most connected to. Meaning, if you were going to move and you needed help, who would you call first? So maybe it's mom, dad, brother, sister, best friends, and then you work your way down. Now, be sort of smart about this. Maybe you have a professor you're very connected to, and yeah, you would never ask him to help you move, but he really likes you, you like him, you have a great relationship. Like, that's someone who's going to be pretty high up on the list. I use the move analogy just to kind of get your brain going. But the idea is you want to get this list out and work your way down the list. We're not going to start at the end, as we just talked about. We're going to start with the people who already care about us. These are the people we need to approach with a pre-planned, purposeful conversation that comes away with action items and is strategic. So what do I mean? You write your list. I'll give you a real world example. I'll give you Brianna, that was a great example. She didn't just call her aunt up, chit chat, and said, oh, by the way, I want to work in national security. It was, hey, aunt, whether it was a text or email, it was pre-planned. It was, hey, could we chat this week? I actually want to talk to you about what I'm planning on doing after graduation and see if you might be able to help me out a little. Give me some advice. What are you doing? Could we chat Thursday night? Great. I'm going to come over Thursday at around 5 o'clock. Great. I'm making up the exact details, but this is pretty much what happened. And then you show up, even though this is someone you know really, really well, but it is a pre-planned conversation. They know the topic at hand. They're going to take you far more seriously and be focused. And you're going to say, look, and her example was, I'm graduating in a few months. I really want to move to DC and work in national security, but I don't know anybody. Do you have any advice? You've had a pretty strong career here in Arkansas. What would you do if you were me? The key was she made it about herself in the sense of, this is what I'm trying to do, but she really let the other person do most of the talking. And that meant that person was going to enjoy themselves more because they got to talk and brainstorm and come up with things. And that's where her aunt said, well, why don't I go talk to our neighbor? I know he's in the Air Force. I don't know exactly what he does. Let me figure that out for you. And that led to an amazing introduction. If you work your way down your list and you do these pre-planned, purposeful conversations and you collect action items, someone will say, yeah, I think I might know somebody here, or, I remember hearing this, and you capture those, and you make sure to follow up with them and make sure they come through for you. You don't sit back and cross your fingers and hope they do it. You follow up. Hey, I remember you said you were going to reach out to this person. Did you ever get in touch with them? Hey, I remember you said you were going to send me this link, not to be annoying, but do you mind sending it over? Things like that. You follow up with things, these action items, and what will happen is you'll never get through your whole list because you'll start going through it and they're going to introduce you to new people, and those people are going to be amazing, and then they're going to introduce you to new people, and it's going to be a really cool, amazing thing. And this is a great segue to the contact snowball. Imagine if you remember the cartoons when they threw a snowball down the hill and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and built upon itself. That's what we're talking about here. Is you make a contact. The hope is that they'll introduce you to somebody who introduces you to somebody. Next thing you know, you've met all these amazing people. But remember, the ultimate goal is not to meet 45 people, because if you meet 45 people one time, none of them are going to ever help you. As you meet these people, you go back. You keep going back down your ladder and you update them. Hey, James, thanks so much for the introduction to Sarah. It was absolutely amazing. This is what she told me. This is what she's going to do for me. You're the man. Thank you so much. James, you'll never believe it. Sarah introduced me to Dave, and I just had coffee with him. It was really amazing. Here's what he said. Gosh, thanks so much again. Hope all is well. It turns out he's going to introduce me to this guy named Mike. Oh my gosh, James, I just met Mike. This is so crazy. Thank you so much for all these intros. Look at, blah, 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 blah. And suddenly that first person is hearing from you all the time, and they're getting invested. And they're invested because they helped you, and they get to see their help played out. And they get to see how they feel really important and cool because their little bit of help has built upon itself. Or you go back to them and you're like, hey, thank you so much for the introduction to Sarah. I've reached out to her a few times and she's never gotten back to me. What do you suggest I do? Now, all of a sudden, they're becoming a mentor. You're asking for advice. They're trying to get strategic with you, and they're becoming invested in your career. What we really also want to do is when we build out a career investors, we look for crossroad moments. We look for these moments in our career where we don't know what to do. It's a great thing to go to them with. We don't just give them updates. Hey, still sticking with it. How are you? No, people don't want to hear that. They're not necessarily your friends. They want to hear, hey, James, thank you so much. I hope you've been well the last 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm at a crossroads moment. I've been offered this opportunity, but it's unpaid, and I don't know if that's what I should be doing right now. Do you think you might have 5 minutes to just kind of give me your advice? Getting advice on very specific situations is going to get them continually invested. And you want those people. If you've made up your mind, I'm not going to take this opportunity, you get 3 or 4 of your career investors to tell you. Let James say, no, don't take it. And you're like, you know what? You're right. I'm not going to take it. Then he's super invested in you because you have followed his career advice and you've made a life decision based off his advice. Now he's really invested in you being successful. Remember, though, this is always going to be about them, not you, which is very counterintuitive. You always are going to want to think when you're making these contacts, well, I want to tell this person everything about me so they know how to help me. But it's actually the opposite. You want them talking about them as much as they can, because if they talk about themselves, they're going to enjoy themselves, because that's how people are. That's how I am. That's how everybody is. And if they enjoy themselves, they're going to want to talk to you again. I can't tell you how many coffees I've had where I sit across the table from some 22-year-old and they just go on and on about themselves. And I try to give some advice here or there, and I walk away and I'm like, this person doesn't know anything about me. They don't know where I'm from. They don't even know how I know the person that made the intro. They don't know what I do. I don't really care that much about this person. I hope they're successful. I hope my advice works, but But if I get to sit down and share my life story with some young person and they seem interested and they're asking me questions and I'm just giving advice and I don't feel pressured to find them something on the spot, I'm going to become invested in them. I'm going to enjoy myself, and I'm going to be looking forward to hearing from them, and I'm going to be willing to get coffee again in 2 weeks because I had a good time the first time. It sounds really simple, but literally no one does this. I don't think I've ever had a contact meeting where someone was connected to me who's ever done this the right way. I don't know if I've ever seen it done to me the right way. I've done it the right way, and my amazing feedback friends have told me how they do it the right way. That's where I learned a lot of this. But I don't know if I've ever seen in real person it done the right way. So anyway, and another thing you want to do is you want to drop the pitch. You're going to find all these blogs about learn your elevator pitch. No, that's not what this is. You're not trying to impress them with your amazing degrees and your skills. You're trying to get to know them as people. Now, they're going to get a look at your resume, and your experience should speak for itself if your resume is really, really, really good. But this is not the time to be pitching yourself. You can pitch yourself in interviews or when you hear of a specific opportunity, and unfortunately, we just don't have the time to get into that. But anyway, So, warning, as I was just about to allude to, you are dead in the water if you have a bad resume. Literally everything we've talked about up until this point is a moot point if your resume stinks. Bad resumes destroy opportunities. Your resume deserves a ton of time. We're running out of time, so I won't tell you all the stories of I would make these amazing connections and then they would get a look at my resume, and I literally had 2 people say, like, I can't help you. Like, this resume needs too much work, and I don't really feel comfortable sending this out, because you're going to get passed along to these people, and a lot of times they're going to send your resume. Hey, why don't you talk to my friend Tommy? His resume is attached. And you want your resume to be awesome and impressive. Not that you had the greatest experiences. I mean, it's okay if you work at Burger King, but you want your resume to look clean, professionally written. So when they look at it, they say, you know what? Maybe this guy doesn't have the best experience, but he takes himself really seriously, and he is professional because this resume is clean and really well written. And another big warning is you only get one first impression with a new contact. So it's something to take very seriously. For every positive interaction I've had, helping someone, I've had 20 negatives. I can't tell you how many people are so bad at this. They show up late, they're unprofessional, they're unappreciative. I mean, the list goes on. And like I said, literally, I think it's 1 out of 20 is someone probably worth helping. And this, you can be that one person just by doing the simple things we've talked about today. And there's a whole lot more you can be doing. We'll get to that in a minute of how you can learn more. But really, this stuff is not taught in schools. And although what I'm telling you all is really simple, it's not intuitive. At least it wasn't for me, and I don't think it is for most people I've helped. A lot of times you got to hear this stuff. It's not intuitive to make the conversation about them even though you're the one who needs help, or it's not intuitive to go talk to your best friends or your parents when you're trying to get a job in DC. But this is what works, and this is what people have been doing for years. And I'll pose this question to you. I mean, how do you think people got jobs in Washington, DC or anywhere back in the 80s, before there was the internet, before cell phones? Like, they had to do it this way. They had to talk to the people in their lives and figure out who knew who and see if people would connect them. And they had to do it slowly, and it was a grind. And in so many ways, it's still that way. It's the same principle. We're just lucky enough to have email that speeds it up, and people can stay in touch with their contacts easier. So, email is a tool. It's not the crutch, or it's not the strategy itself, if that makes sense. So as you might guess, this is where the video actually used to end. For over a year, you would have gotten to this point, and I would have just said thank you, and that would have been the end. But I'm coming back after the fact and recording this because I want to do something different. I want to find a way to connect deeper with you. And I'm going to tell you a really quick story. DC Hopefuls was never started on purpose. In fact, I was just a guy helping people, and word had spread. And by the end of summer of 2014, I realized I had given advice to almost 55 people that summer. Eventually, the number got to 100 as I began speaking on campuses, and I realized, okay, I got to create a website and get this information out there. And what may surprise you is, in fact, I was actually really close to not doing this, because 95% of the people I helped left me feeling really used and unappreciated. They wanted a quick, easy fix or quick answer. They wanted me to go get them a job, and they really weren't about to embrace what needed to be done. But there were 5 that really stuck out. Who was it? It was Elliot, it was Kaylin, it was Mark, it was Casey, and it was Amanda. Those were the original 5. Oh, Zach. So maybe it was 6. But anyway, they were the first original members of what I now call Career Investors, which is my private membership group, a group that has exploded from those 5 members in 2017 to 55 members today as I'm filming this video. And it's really important to me to identify who's worth helping, who's worth my time, making that really valuable investment of my energy. So what I want to say is, first off, I really appreciate it, because you would be shocked how many people pay the $40 for this course and never actually finish it. It's around half the people. So I wanted to start doing something to reward the half of you that actually sat down and learned this information and embraced it. And the fact that you are willing to purchase a course like this tells me so much about you and where your heart is at. So if you see the link below, I'm going to offer you the ability to sign up and chat with me. Because I think you're smart enough to know that while these 2 modules can really help, it's going to take a lot more. So what I want to do is schedule this 30-minute call, and I want to kind of go over where this information landed with you, your exact situation, and maybe game plan how we can take the things I just taught you and start implementing it in your actual life and get your career moving in the direction we want. And if it feels like a good fit, I think I'm going to tell you more about Career Investors and how you can become a member in the next class whenever that opens, and actually tell you a little bit about our masterclass that I'm going to start doing for the first time ever, coming up in a few months, maybe a few weeks, we'll see. But regardless, I would love to do this free strategy call with you because you have shown yourself to be someone that I should take seriously, that wants help, that is embracing the material that I'm teaching, and I would love to schedule that with you. So go ahead and click the link. If none of the times really work for you, or they're all filled up, which could be a possibility, you can always email me at tommy@dchopefuls.com and say, hey, I wanted to schedule this 30-minute strategy call with you, but the times aren't working or the link's not working, and we'll work something out from there. But schedule this with me. I do want to chat with you, and hopefully I'm going to be talking to every one of you who watches this very, very soon. All right.